The chain spear is a mighty inclusion into the Doom combat ecosystem, introducing vertical acrobatics into Dark Age's horizontal carnage. It is the center of this DLC, and also symbolic of it, drawing from the qualities of past Doom titles while presenting bold new ones, ultimately striving to create a fresh experience for hardcore fans of this iconic franchise. Does it succeed? Doom the Dark Ages Revelations is the highly anticipated story DLC to last year's Doom the Dark Ages, developed by id Software and published by Bethesda, who provided the key for this review. A big thank you to them. Along with the spear, Revelations provides a meaty campaign spanning 6 maps, a mob of new and returning monsters to combat, as well as a hunky endgame. It's easily the most ambitious DLC id has ever put out, and one that unfortunately comes in the wake of depressing news, as on the eve of Revelations' launch, id Software's parent company, Microsoft, laid off more than half of the studio. A frustrating reward to a talented team that has delivered nothing but quality this past decade. id leaders have assured that the team is still strong and more Doom will come. However, with the wave of rumors, speculation, and outrage hyperbole that has come from this upsetting turn of events, playing through Revelations, it was hard for me not to have a feeling that this could be a Doom swan song of sorts. And while I hope I'm wrong in those feelings, if they end up being true, then oh boy did this swan just belt out one heck of a tune. The big new shiny star of Revelations is of course the spear, bringing with it 5 distinct abilities, each mapped to their own key. That's right, 5 new keys to program into your muscle memory, and I hope you have the room. This is no mere new weapon. Oh no, it's a whole vast layer woven into the Dark Ages rocket tank combat loop that for most players will completely overhaul how they play this game. On the ground level, it brings the base functions of the shield, with the slash able to tear through superheated armor and parry green attacks. Next to those, however, are some returning staples from Doom Eternal. The meat hook, bringing more verticality to Dark Ages horizontal focus, and dashing, which on top of being a defensive maneuver is key for charging your empowerment. More on that later. And both those mechanics, by and large, feel on par with their Eternal predecessors, albeit with slight differences. They feel good and responsive to use in an instinctual way, once you get the hang of them, of course. I do think it's fair to say that the spear brings a more twitchy Doom Eternal feel, which might be welcome to those who may not have totally connected with Dark Age's heavier tanky feel. However, it must be stressed that this is not a return to the combat of Eternal. This is still the Dark Ages loop of breaking down enemies with rhythmic timing, strategically employing passive resource gathering, and harnessing parries as ammo, so to speak, for creative combos, with player choice and skill expression driving all of it. The spear serves to enrich the established core nugget. The spear definitely takes some getting used to though. My early hours were characterized by me awkwardly flinging myself around with the meat hook, whoopsies, fighting against my shield muscle memory as I slashed thinking I was going to block, not to mention constantly reminding myself, dude, you can dash now, use it. However, the learning curve for the spear is not as long compared to that of the shield, or the vanilla combat loop of the Dark Ages for that matter. By the second mission of Purgatory, I felt I had the spear's particulars down. By the third, I was pulling off combos comfortably and honing strategies, and by the endgame content, I was feeling pretty godly. Although there was still room for me to be humbled. While the spear is given a clear, straightforward tutorial in the beginning, id's overall approach to making you learn it is to grab you by the belt and throw you off the deep end. During the first arena of Hell's Core, the first mission where the spear's training wheels are taken off, after dispatching a few waves of low-level demons and a couple isolated heavies, typical early Doom campaign fare, a freaking Archvile was suddenly sprung on me, with a cinematic intro to fit his iconic stature. To remind, traditionally these high-level demons aren't brought out until mid or late game. And yeah, he whipped my butt 3 ways to Sunday. This incarnation is nasty. Not quite as nasty as the Eternal incarnation, although I'm sure there's some room to debate it. Like Eternal, he teleports throughout the field, spawning an army of specters to get in your way, while aggressively flinging projectiles at you. A new attack, though, is that he encircles himself in said projectiles, blasting them out in every direction like a blooming firework in the sky. And to add insult to injury, he can also surround himself with tall shields that will smack you with damaging specters of themselves. He's an asshole, pure and simple. But after a few frustrating restarts in this first encounter, it started to dawn on me why I was taking on this iconic enemy so early. The chain spear is well suited to him, and this was a brutal trial by fire for it. The meat hook could fling me in the air to avoid the blooming projectiles, as well as the shield walls. But with those, if you can superheat them fast enough, one good spear slash can decimate them, leaving him totally vulnerable, like popping open an oyster or cracking a nut. Very satisfying. And from there, it was hard not to use the spear exclusively in the many Archvile encounters to come, each time challenging me to use it more mindfully, and thus cleverly forcing me to learn it. The next layer to the spear are empowerment abilities, and this is where it gets real fun. Abilities are purchased at Hollow Shrines with collectible platinum, which replace the Sentinel Shrines, rocking a creepy hand that comes out of them.
Here! Oh, take my hand! Ah!
Empowerment abilities each have their own skill tree of upgrades. From the get-go, you're free to purchase whatever ability you want, whenever you want, assuming you have the funds. There's a Spear Slam, similar to the Hammer Slam from the Ancient Gods, dealing a shockwave of damage, a sniper-like spear throw, and a good old-fashioned stab, letting you live out your Spartan fantasies. Now, to use these, you have to build up empowerment, reflected by the curved meter near the crosshair, and when the spear turns orange. FYI, you can turn the meter off if it's a distraction. Empowerment is gained primarily by achieving perfect dodges with your dash against green attacks, giving greater importance to the mechanic beyond defense. Although there's other means of building up empowerment from upgrades as you progress. And I should note, perfect dodges feel very good and fun to achieve. A satisfying pairing of sound effects, slight visual flair, and just the right amount of slow-mo to tickle the serotonin centers of your brain. Empowerments are the silver bullets of high-level combat in Revelations, not so much because of their combat advantages, but more so the perks you gain from them through upgrades. Upgrading the Slam, for example, can net you health pickups upon damaging enemies, along with briefly holding them in place for a few beats. The stab can be made to instantly superheat armor, and improvements to the throw let it cut through projectiles as well as energy shields. And your base abilities aren't left out in the cold. The slash can gain some valuable perks, and more so the meat hook that can gain the orbit ability, as well as the return of the flaming meat hook. When fully upgraded, the spear brings just as, if not more depth than the shield, guns, and melee, becoming an important pillar to the loop. So much so, you'll wonder how you lived without it in the vanilla game. And I have yet to explicitly mention it, but you can and should quick swap between spear and shield. This will allow you to exploit their abilities back to back and sometimes simultaneously, offering a whole other complex meta to sink your teeth into. I have seen some complaints, soft complaints really, that juggling the muscle memory between spear and shield can be a lot. And indeed, I found myself getting tripped up going between them, especially in the early hours. Where initially I had to remember I couldn't block with the spear, there were far too many times I forgot I couldn't dash with the shield, leading to some embarrassing fails. But I think getting the hang of it all and mastering the swap is a part of the pure video gamey joy of this DLC, the pure video gamey joy of Doom. But here's the thing, while I personally felt going between shield and spear was the funnest way to play, the beauty of Revelations is it gives you a lot of freedom to approach combat how you want, a slew of options to build a meta that is most comfortable for you, and more importantly, the most fun. For me, there were certain enemies I just preferred using the shield against, and some I couldn't imagine not using the spear on. Some empowerments became my go-tos, some kinda got left in the dust. For some fights, standing my ground and being a tank was the way to go, others, being twitchy and dashy, felt more appropriate. Some things I did in combat because they felt the most effective, and some I did simply because they felt the most enjoyable. The flexibility for skill expression remains one of the best qualities of the Dark Ages, and Revelations takes that a big step further. And what's been really fun for me is going onto social media and seeing other players' gameplay highlights and the variety of different approaches they take that works for them the best. That is awesome to me. Sure, the endgame content definitely requires you to utilize the Slayer's full toolbox, but as far as the base game combat is concerned, there's no wrong way of going about it. It's your sandbox of destruction. The only requirement is to be as aggressive as possible. I talked earlier about the reintroduction of the infamous Archviles, but there are other additions alongside them to the roster, and broadly the inclusions are good. And by good, I mean they will make you curse their existence as they add panic-inducing levels of complication to the combat. The only one I wasn't particularly in love with was the Buzzsaw. I like their design, they're generally fun to fight, I just find them kind of forgettable compared to the other additions. Their rapid movements and wide spin attacks can be tricky, but overall it's a matter of superheating their shields and finishing them off quickly with a stronger gun. Nothing too crazy. Same with the new spectral versions of the Revenant and Whiplash. Sure, a bit trickier to see, but not a huge difference from their visible versions. Whiplashes leave a poison trail, which is very irksome. I freaking hate poison floor traps, looking at you, Vagary, but at the same time, the trails kinda give the whiplashes away, making their spectral nature less impactful. The new Warlocks, though, are a menace that deserve to be locked away. They zip around the arena like the Archvile, release a purple mist to obscure your view, and any demon in said mist will be buffed. Oh, and we can't forget their aggressive projectiles. You get some high-level demons in the field with them, and they become public enemy number 1. We also see the glorious return of the Pain Elemental, or more specifically, the Cosmic Elemental, Cosmental as I like to call them. And just like past incarnations of this painful beast, it belches up lost souls and chucks them right at you, or surrounds himself with them to shoot at you like missiles, although the lost souls can be destroyed at once with a well-placed rocket or spear slam. Speaking of the spear, these suckers are just begging to be meat hooked, which is the most enjoyable way to combat them, at least for me, especially for hit-and-run shotgun or rocket dashes, and I've seen some techniques online involving the accelerator's heat blast. Although you can give them a good old-fashioned shield bash, which is exhilarating, but come on, meat hook, just look how much fun that is. Which actually makes going head-to-head with just the Cosmentals alone not too terrible. However, it's when they start getting comboed up with more powerful demons that they become a stark danger, as their lost souls can and will blindside you. Not to mention the Cosmentals have rapid projectile attacks on the level of the Revenants, so when they spawn, they really need to be high on your priorities. But low-key, I think the most fiendish addition to the enemy roster are the Blighted Hell Knights. While they don't look all that different from a standard knight, when these purple-flamed monstrosities do their ground pound, it begins a short countdown to self-destruct, which will wipe out most of your health if you're in the blast radius. And while you can try to dash away from them, the blast radius is so wide, it's more than likely you'll be caught in it. Luckily, it's not difficult to stun them, and a Super Shotgun Blast or two will wipe them right out. But if they're on the field, you have to deal with them immediately. They can be easy to miss and undermine you in a crowded, complicated fight. Like, imagine running around your living room trying to swat a bee. They're the thumbtack waiting for you on the ground to step on. I should mention there are also blighted zombies, not nearly as bad as the Hell Knights, and are actually more of an asset, as they are more or less walking explosive barrels. Walking barrels of fun, for you to use against enemies. Oh, and we can't forget the health zombie. Basically a normal zombie, but carrying a bunch of health drops, meant to cut down on fodder that tended to crowd the battlefield too much in the vanilla game. They will also be your best friend in the harder endgame arenas. The sight of a health zombie while critical is like finding an oasis of water in the desert. Now, if it hasn't become clear, Revelations is hard. I think harder than the vanilla game. Dooms are always at their best when there's a little voice in the back of your head going, how on earth am I going to get through this? And yeah, that voice was very loud in my head in this DLC. But what I think really makes it spicy, especially in the endgame battles, is that it introduces a lot of enemies that need to be dealt with first or ASAP. Right? The Archvile needs to be dealt with because he crowds the field with specters and projectiles. Cosmentals will blindside you with lost souls. Blighted Knights will put you in critical if you're not paying attention. Warlocks because they can buff everyone. And where Revelations gets real mean, but also real peak if you ask me, is when they have most of these demons together. That's when it turns into some high-speed chess, as Hugo would call it. Hell, even a few of these suckers on the field turns up the heat and complication considerably. Who do you take on first if everyone needs to be dealt with immediately? And God help you if there's a blue leader demon buffing them further. And it's one of the best succinct expressions of something that's been core to Doom's and any classic shooter's difficulty. Enemy combinations and prioritizing. Freaking phenomenal and nerve-wracking as hell on a first-time playthrough. I never thought I'd see the day where the remaining demons being a Hunter, Komodo, Vagary, even a Cyber Demon would be a relief. In a DLC full of good ideas, Purgatory might be the best of them.
This crypt is your pain given shape. It holds many secrets.
On a basic level, it's a hub world, with portals to the 3 main missions of the DLC. Obviously, that's nothing new for an id game. Quake had a hub map as well as Doom Eternal. But here id has stretched out and fleshed out the concept, providing a sizable and complex map just begging to be explored. While it is comparable to Eternal's Fortress of Doom, Purgatory is not some mere traditional hub zone stuffed with Easter eggs. In fact, calling it a hub doesn't really do it justice. It's an integral aspect that anchors the whole Revelations experience together, providing Metroidvania-style mission design that is fairly novel for a Doom game and really fun to see it experiment with. As soon as the player is fully unleashed into Purgatory, the Metroidvania elements quickly come into play, as you start finding spots to use your then broken shield, strange markings hinting at strange puzzles, mysterious switches for the chain spear, and a few spots to create shortcuts. It's a puzzle box with a lot of question marks and a lot of possibilities. And once you regain the shield, a lot opens up in Purgatory. You'll be able to unlock special combat challenges for platinum rewards, and more importantly, be able to solve puzzles to access more areas. Which aren't the most difficult of brain teasers, this isn't Myst after all, but do require a lot more thought than your typical FPS puzzle. These aren't just block punch puzzles, although many a block will be punched. Admittedly, I am a sucker for FPSs that incorporate Metroidvania design, but I really do feel that id was thoughtful in its execution. The exploration and puzzle solving are stimulating, giving a nice degree of that Metroid discovery satisfaction, and the combat encounters keep things good and spicy. We truly got some Samus mixed in with our Slayer, and I'm all about it. My only issue with Purgatory is that I wish there was more of it, more that could be explored in between each mission. Because, yeah, once you obtain the shield, which happens after the first Purgatory mission, you can go ham and pretty much uncover everything in Purgatory. I should stress, there is a lot to go ham on. I just wish there was one more layer of unlocks and exploration between missions 2 and 3. To be fair, there is an endgame area to unlock, which I would say is one of these standout spots of Purgatory, along with a couple other endgame doors to eventually access. But like I said, just one more layer of unlocks would have been fantastic. I really dig this aspect and felt it was a big step up for how a Doom game is structured, and I really hope that id takes this concept further in a future Doom title. So far, I've been mainly gushing about Purgatory, but worry not, I have not forgotten the real meat and potatoes, which are the missions. Now, in my Revelations preview video, I stated this DLC would feature 4 missions including Purgatory. Yeah, that wasn't correct. It's actually 6 including Purgatory. Although, in my defense, the messaging was a bit on the murky side coming from id. There are 3 missions you access within Purgatory during the course of the base game, with 2 other missions at the beginning and end.
That will be 1 + 1 + 2 + 1, not 1 + 2 + 1 + 1.
And all these missions are on one hand a return to form, another a bold new direction. Vanilla Dark Ages was characterized by more expansive horizontal level design, non-linear maps with wide fields of battle that funneled into more focused combat arenas and side challenges, giving a sort of open-world feel while maintaining the combat focus. With Revelations, we see the map design largely go back to the linearity and chiefly the verticality of Doom 2016 and Eternal, mainly to complement the spear's meat hook and the platforming challenges and combat possibilities it brings. There's still plenty of wide horizontal arenas, or rather battlegrounds, to fight in, keeping the rocket tank aspects of Dark Ages in the forefront, but a vast field of non-linear activities you will not find here. However, that's not to say id isn't trying new things, because this time around we have the new endgame structure. Within each map you'll see special locked doors requiring the master key to open, which is earned when you beat the base game. Once unlocked, these doors lead you to new sections of the maps, some so vast they could be considered their own distinct missions, full of freaking hard combat and even harder challenges to enjoy. This isn't just bonus activities, this is a distinct experience alongside the base game with its own unique qualities and peculiarities. According to id, the endgame is 40% of the Revelations experience, and yeah, I would say that's about right. In fact, there's so much to the endgame, I decided to spin off my thoughts about it into a separate video.
Surprise, surprise!
So be on the lookout for that, as I'm planning on dropping it fairly soon after this video uploads. How are the base game missions though? They're excellent. Frankly, I can't dig out a complaint from my experience. Each new combat arena felt like a fresh escalation of challenge. The broad horizontal battlefields brought heart-pounding scale to the carnage, and the smaller, concentrated vertical arenas not only made that meat hook shine, but felt like a warm comfort blanket of classic id level design. To be fair, the vanilla game wasn't devoid of that comfort blanket, but here it's simply expressed better. All fluffy and warm. Traversal and exploration are also fantastic, and one of my chief complaints about the vanilla game has been addressed in that secrets are no longer pointed out on the map screen. If you want to find them toys and treasures, you gotta hunt them down and pay attention to visual clues. Just like the good old days, as it should be. And something I really enjoyed is each map has its own distinct puzzles and puzzle devices to tinker with for progressing and uncovering secrets, employing your shield, spear, and sometimes both. And these devices are often tied into the platforming, which is more prominent in this DLC, like a giant spinner that rotates you to different areas in the Hell's Core map, and otherworldly platforms that zip through the air and create walkways in Zalgoroth. I remember when I reviewed Eternal way back when and being ho-hum on the platforming elements introduced. I just didn't think they added all that much to the experience and felt a bit tacked on, making me impatient to get back to the combat. What I realized with Revelations is that what was missing from the platforming was more of a puzzle element, or rather a more challenging puzzle element. Having the platforming tied into the puzzles and making progressing through platforming the reward for solving them makes the platforming feel more substantial and motivated, and not just something you do every once in a while when you're not making demon puddles. The last thing I'll touch on, which I hope has been apparent throughout this review, is wow, does this game look good. This might be my favorite art direction in a Doom game. Each map was jaw-droppingly beautiful, with a painstaking amount of detail carved into them, presenting overwhelming vistas that simply made me go, whoa. And to my delight, often presenting entirely new and memorable aesthetics for the Doom universe. One thing I complained about in the vanilla game is while the visuals were astounding, like gazing upon a painting, I felt the hell levels were a bit too familiar, retreading aesthetics I've seen in past titles. They were still stunning, don't get me wrong, but considering its predecessor had some of the most unique and wild-looking hell maps of the series, it was a bit of a letdown. Revelations addresses that beautifully by providing truly novel and incredible-looking underworld scenics, stuff I've never seen before in Doom. Hell's Core is easily my favorite. Basically a snow-covered gore nest surrounded by brown and gray mountains, with a disgusting mess of blood and guts seeping into the white ground slush, making for terrifying but gorgeous contrast. Screaming faces formed into the ice and dead titans everywhere. Boy, id sure has gotten their money's worth out of those titan models, huh? It's outstanding work. Horrific, but outstanding. Made all the more tangible by id Tech 8's stellar lighting. I badly want to gush about the returning cosmic Zalgoroth and the wastes of Osius, but I think I've kept you here long enough, and they are far better experienced than explained. I will say a few words on the music though. Finishing Move returned for this soundtrack. I thought they did a good job on the vanilla game. I think they did a better job here. No, they still don't reach the heights of Mick Gordon. He's always going to be a tough act to follow, but they did a great job following him, and I think a lot of the criticism against them has been unfair. Criticism though, I think they took to heart, because my god did they bring it in this DLC. There are some tracks here I think are going to go down as all-time greats in the Doom music pantheon, like Valley of the Bone, which I used in the opening montage. Look, I have two metrics for if I enjoy Doom music. Is it fun to kill demons to, and is it fun to cut montages to? And Revelation soundtrack checked those two boxes with blood red ink. When I reviewed Doom: The Dark Ages last year, my headline was that it was almost a masterpiece, and I still stand by that. I thought id's new direction for it was fantastic. It was just held back by a few elements and a gameplay loop that, while really fun, took a bit too long to fully click. With Revelations though, there is no question in my mind. This is a masterpiece. This is the best combat I've ever experienced in a Doom game, and some of the best gameplay I've ever experienced in a first-person shooter, period. And really does feel like a culmination of the modern Doom trilogy. I'm obsessed with it, and even as this upload goes up, I'm still playing and striving to master it. Thank God for the Repertorium. It is a tight, honed, and deep experience cinched together by an inspired new hub design and stellar missions, sure to be iconic due in no small part to their sensational art direction. Since 2016, this id team has continuously blown me away, each of their efforts reaffirming why I love the FPS genre and reigniting my passion for it, and Revelations is the perfect bow to put on all those feelings. The only true negative is the fact that a large chunk of the talent that made this game are now looking for work. I have a lot of feelings and thoughts on the actions of Microsoft this last month, and many of them I'm saving for my end of the month State of the Boom, as there's a lot of emotion and misinformation flying around out there, and I'm still sifting through it all. But ultimately, I find these layoffs disappointing and foolish, and has only made me more skeptical about those steering the Microsoft ship. My heart goes out to the entire id Software team. You all didn't deserve this. If you're a Doom fan, this is an absolute must-play, and if you're someone that didn't quite latch on to the Dark Ages, give it another shot and give this DLC a try, because if you ask me, Doom has never been better. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there, and rip and tear.